Alright, so for the summary part of it, I said that like the basic idea of it was that there was just so much tension, first between like Lincoln and Congress, and then once Lincoln was assassinated, between Johnson and Congress. Like Congress had this very specific idea of how they wanted the Reconstruction to go, but then Johnson's was kind of regression. Yeah. But it was so much more like lenient towards the South than Congress ever wanted, whereas Lincoln was trying to make concessions to both sides.
But he made no one happy in the process.
Yeah, exactly. And then they struggled with like what should take precedence, you know, the readmission to the Union or the status of the freedmen now that slavery was officially abolished, which obviously Johnson saw reassimilation to the Union as more important, and he kind of left slavery on the back burner, which angered slaves alike, but then he gained Southern respect and support from there. Some important facts I wrote down, like the death of Lincoln, like April 15th, his re-election, and then like some things about Johnson, like him pardoning the Confederates, and then vetoing the Civil Rights Act and the Freedmen Bureau Act. I thought those were most important. So again, it shows the tension. And then a big idea is that the South kept their superiority complex over both the North and
Pretty much adding on to you, all I felt that this document was talking about was their actions that they took to reunite the conquered states, which involved three people. Lincoln, who just pretty much, he wanted to do this as quickly as possible, it feels like that 10% admission swear to oath thing was pretty much just to get as many states back to the Union as fast as possible. Congress, you had Congress that wanted more stricter reinforcements. They wanted them to come back, but in a sense of like know what they did wrong and not to do it ever again. And then there's Johnson. And Johnson, I don't even know about Johnson. Johnson's pretty negative.
Not my favorite.
Yeah, no. Again, my facts and information was Lincoln's approach. He needed 10% to join the Union. When that occurred, you could form, the states formed its own government, and then they were recessed back into the federal government. And then all states had to ratify the 13th Amendment that slavery was abolished. Congress, going off of Lincoln, they just needed 50% of admission or of swear of oath, and then they needed to give some rights to blacks enjoyed by whites, which included voting, holding office, owning property, and testifying in court. And then there's Johnson, who issued pardons for the richest Confederates. So pretty much what Lincoln and Congress had done was pretty much wiped out, because sooner or later the Confederate leaders that were in the Civil War got back into office, and I felt as if that's what eventually led to the Black Codes and all that black restriction and whatnot.
Very similar to what you guys said, the whole thing with the end of the Civil War, the Reconstruction under Lincoln didn't really go so well because, I mean, he died before it could really take effect. Johnson was ineffective as president, and there was little desire for change in the South, which really hurt any sort of actual success. And so, like you said, you had the Lincoln's plan, which was, you covered pretty well. With Congress, the main supporters of this radical Republican Congress were, you know, Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner, who pushed incredibly hard to just abuse the South, make them regret seceding from the Union. They thought it was far beyond treason. When Lincoln and Johnson are reelected in 1864, I thought this was really interesting that I didn't know before, was the Wade-Davis bill was passed by Congress, but Lincoln in essence vetoed it just by not signing it, and then he died, and it was sort of lost in the shuffle of what was going on with Johnson. And of course, Johnson's not going to agree to the Wade-Davis bill because he's incredibly moderate. And then, you know, yeah, Lincoln's death by John Wilkes Booth. Andrew Johnson continues what he's doing. The South re-elects basically all their Confederate leaders and brings in the black codes. And then I love that Congress passes the Civil Rights and Freedmen's Bureau Acts and like those bills. And then finally, Johnson vetoes them, and they just go, no, we have a 2/3 majority, and re-voted in. I think that's hilarious. Because there's just such an obvious dispute there between the president that no one seems to enjoy, a radical Congress that isn't doing anything for the South, and the South who is just like, let's go back to pre-Civil War. Totally didn't happen, guys. Don't worry about it. Oh yeah, for the questions, I just put why was the South still so adamantly against changing and developing after the Civil War, and then which parts of his presidency made Johnson such a poor president. Because I think we can all agree he wasn't very good at what he did.
Yeah. I mean, for your question with the South, it's like, I mean, I kind of like had that in my big ideas, but it's like that was their whole like way of life up until that point. So they were still so attached to the like pre-Civil notion, and then
they just romanticized the idea
everything
continuously up until like the mid 1950s, probably, honestly.
And then Kayla and I both had like how would Reconstruction have differed if Lincoln had not been assassinated, like he had continued out his presidency.
The great what if.
Yeah, like you said with the Wade Davis bill, like because he got assassinated, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. But like if he had it, would that have like come back up? Would he have to like actually face it and either like officially veto it, or would he have to come up with a counter offer of some sort?
He had that whole weird way that you had to like come and see him.
Yeah, like
and
come
like
to the White House.
basically like bow and scrape, you know.
Yeah.
But it was almost like you were being honored, like you were like
And
invited
people
to
are
like
mad
White
at
House.
Lincoln for like expanding the power of the executive,
Yeah.
and he's actually almost being asked to be treated like a king.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of a weird guy.
Yeah.
Weird, very unpopular
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, exactly.
And then we got France, and that's even better.
Yeah, poor Grant. I have a soft spot because I've been to Galena. In my heart.
France, you were great as a general.
Yes.
Stop after that.
I know. But you know, that's so
Yeah.
true for power. If you look
Yeah.
at people in power, you know, like, so I never want to go.
You could do a whole course on
I could tell you
power.
what I don't want to do, but when you really analyze people in power, there is that principle that they go, hey, you're really good at this, let's put you into the next job. You're not going to be good in that next job, sister, don't take it. You know, that's we see that over and over again, you know, in political leaders and all kinds of institutions. Are you guys pretty finished up?